You're about to watch what we call an extended clip of the Young Turks, and the reality is it's somewhere in the middle. It's a little longer than our YouTube clips, but it's actually shorter than the whole 2-hour show, which you can get if you're a member. You can get it ad-free, and make sure you catch every news story we do that day. You're gonna love it as a full show. That's at tytnetwork.com/join. Thanks for watching. Yeah, back on the Young Turks. Joe, Cenk, Josh, and John. There's a lot of J's in there. Me with a fake J too. All right, Amber writes in, watching #TYT live show and representing New York's 21st Congressional District. Enjoyed the recent Dylan Ratigan interview from TYT Politics. Thank you. New York's voting in about a month. Dylan Ratigan's a really interesting candidate, obviously. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, scaring the living crap out of Joe Crowley, who is now going to debate her, which is unprecedented.
When is that?
Yeah, that's coming up pretty soon, in about 2 weeks. So
exciting.
Yeah. It's amazing elections that are going on. Obviously, a huge one. 8 states on Tuesday, June 5th. We're going to cover it live here with lots of hours of coverage John and I were just talking about. So don't tell everybody, tyt.com/live. Make sure you check it out. All right, Larry Vetter says if Trump comes up with a good peace plan, TYT should send him a t-shirt. So when you have a good tweet, we send you a t-shirt, right? So ironically, Larry, you'll now get a t-shirt.
Made us laugh.
Yes, that's
there you
right. Go. Not ironically, appropriately. Yeah. But yes, I would happily send him a t-shirt, including the one we got Trump doing grope instead of hope.
I didn't see that.
There's a lot of good ones at shoptyt.com. All right, Progressive Mystique says, sure, I'll give Trump a medal too, but there'll be a 40% tariff on it.
Deserves a t-shirt too.
Yeah. All right, find another t-shirt. See these liberals? They're just giving the store away.
T-shirt for you. Taking the shirt off our back.
And then last one is a very stable photographer writes in, already funny. New Orleans is getting a new natural gas plant we don't want. I'm reading this one for you, Josh. I knew you were all over this. And the power company paid actors to show up and publicly supported. Story broke last month.
You know who did the first interview with the paid actor? Me.
Josh Fox.
I've been working down there. Oh yeah, I've been working down there for a while on this power plant because it is absolutely outrageous. You're talking about a frac gas power plant in a floodplain in New Orleans East, which is an African American community, a Vietnamese community, a Latino community, and the company Entergy has gotten city council, who regulates the utility, to vote in a rate hike for the people who live in New Orleans. So right. Every person in New Orleans will pay $10 a month for this power plant for 30 years.
Oh my God.
So that means, right, if you say, one of the people I interviewed, when I did a short film on this, it said No Gas Plant Facebook page, No Gas Plant, and I think it's nogasplant.org, but go to the No Gas Plant Facebook page, you see all about this. This is the prime example of this policy going completely awry, right? If you put $10 aside for 30 years, you could put your kid through college. So Entergy is now getting that from every single New Orleanian, and there's a big fight that's going to happen over this. The community is fighting back. There's an incredible coalition called the Cayenne Coalition, which is a coalition of incredible civil rights and environmental groups fighting that power plant. We have those fights happening all across this nation. There's the CPV power plant in New York. We can't just ban fracking. We have to ban the infrastructure. We have to ban this, the power plants. And in fact, I wrote the part of the Democratic platform, alongside with Bill McKibben and Dr. Cornel West, which recommends that we use solar instead of frack gas. So as part of the Democratic Party platform, all the city council in New Orleans are Democrats. They're violating their own platform. Every part of this is wrong, and I'm so happy somebody wrote in about that, because the most threatened city in America to climate change should not be building a climate change inducing power plant. No.
By the way, Josh is also the creative director for Our Revolution.
Full disclosure.
Yes. And Entergy, we've been talking about South Park, the movie. Entergy sounds like the name of the evil corporation in a movie. Like, oh yeah, the guys from Entergy are here. Oh no.
Yeah. The robot that hunts you down, made by Entergy.
Totally.
And by the way, $10 a month sounds like a lot of money. But can you really put a price of being able to set your tap water on fire?
That's pretty cool. Well, that's pretty cool. can grill your vegetables and wash them at the same time. it's been said.
Or you could join a progressive network, tyt.com/join. I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying.
You could actually. That's great.
We're so progressive, we just give you our shirts.
Yeah, the next president should require
You have
you
to
be a
give away
member.
crawfish if you want.
I know, in New Orleans.
New Orleans,
That's right. All right, go
Okay,
ahead.
more news for you?
Yep.
Okay. One of Donald Trump's duties as president is to comfort the families of those who have died in school shootings, or at the very least, the school shootings that we choose to acknowledge on a national level. And since the government refuses to do anything to actually make these shootings less likely to happen, it's almost literally the least he can do. He is unfortunately wholly unqualified to do it, and that was demonstrated once again this week when he met with one of the parents of a Santa Fe high school student who died in that shooting. In advance of that meeting, he was speaking with reporters before boarding Air Force One. This is yesterday. And he talked about traveling to Texas, where he said, quote, "We're going to have a little fun today," which is an interesting way to describe meeting the families of those who have been killed in a mass shooting. But that was how he chose to describe it. Now, the mother of one 14-year-old, Rhonda Hart, who was the mother of Kimberly Vaughn, told the AP that Trump, in meeting with her, repeatedly used the word wacky to describe the shooter and the trench coat he wore. She said she told Trump, maybe if everyone had access to mental health care, we wouldn't be in this situation. Hart, an Army veteran, said she also suggested employing veterans as sentinels in schools. She said Trump responded, "And arm them?" She said no, but Trump kept mentioning arming classroom teachers, and she said it was like talking to a toddler. Yeah.
Well, instead of arming teachers, this is what I think we should do. We should ban gun ownership. That should be our guiding call. It's time to ban gun ownership.
All right, well, he said it, so go ahead and get angry.
Ban gun ownership.
So, by the way, let's just note for the record, because obviously a lot of people in this country, apparently including conservative Supreme Court justices, can't read. The only amendment in the US Constitution that mentions regulation is the Second Amendment. It says a well-regulated militia being necessary. They choose to ignore that completely. So even if you don't agree with Joe's idea of banning guns, which unquestionably would make us safer, you should at least know that the Founding Fathers wanted us to regulate guns, and anything else that is said is a total and utter lie. You can just read the Second Amendment for yourself. And the reason why I say it would unquestionably make us safer, Joe's proposal, even if you think there are downsides that make it not worth it, in your opinion, is the experience of every other country in the world. And so the idea of mental health, and I know that a lot of people make that suggestion in good faith. Oh, we just improved mental health. We have the same exact mental health situation as every other country, but we have infinitely higher gun deaths. And the word infinite is only barely hyperbolic. In Japan, I think they had 6 gun deaths in a year. We have, I think, around 30,000. And that's because, it's not because we're more insane than Japan. It's not because we have more video games than Japan. It's because we have more guns.
It's all about the guns. And this is, the NRA, a terrorist organization, holding America hostage so that they can perpetuate this fantasy of some kind of eventual revolt against the American government, or they're protecting themselves against. It is unbelievable to me to think that this man who has so little conscience and so little actual bearing could then anger a woman who lost their child. This is the most difficult kind of story for me to react to, because it hurts so badly. And you just think, yes, we have to ban AR-15s. Yes, we have to ban, these types of weapons. And I agree with you. I think we should take a really long look at saying we don't need guns. We don't need guns in our society right now. The death toll is too high. The consequences to our moral conscience is just too high. I don't want to be afraid to walk into a school. I don't want to be afraid to go to a concert. I don't want to be afraid to walk down the street. This is hand in hand with, again, white supremacy, racism, an enforcement of a certain way of thinking about America, which has to expire. And we have to start to talk about how do we bring about peace, and how do we bring about, nonviolence.
You know, I'm so sick of people talking about the need for quote unquote reasonable gun control.
We need to talk about a relatively new show called the Republic, or UNFTR. As a Young Turks fan, you already know that the government, the media, and corporations are constantly peddling lies that serve the interests of the rich and powerful. But now there's a podcast dedicated to unraveling those lies, debunking the conventional wisdom. In each episode of the Republic, or UNFTR, the host delves into a different historical episode or topic that's generally misunderstood or purposely obfuscated by the so-called powers that be, featuring in-depth research, razor-sharp commentary, and just the right amount of vulgarity. The UNFTR podcast takes a sledgehammer to what you thought you knew about some of the nation's most sacred historical cows. But don't just take my word for it. The New York Times described UNFTR as consistently compelling and educational, aiming to challenge conventional wisdom and upend the historical narratives that were taught in school. For as the great philosopher Yoda once put it, you must unlearn what you have learned. And that's true whether you're in Jedi training or you're uprooting and exposing all the propaganda and disinformation you've been fed over the course of your lifetime. So search for UNFTR in your podcast app today and get ready to get informed, angered, and entertained all at the same time.
When unreasonable and obscene things are happening to our kids, the answer isn't, let's be reasonable. Let's be unreasonable in the response, which is why it's time for us as progressives to start calling for a ban on gun ownership.
Well, and let's also acknowledge, of course, that we're not even getting reasonable gun control. We're not getting anything, and that's why I can't place myself in the position of a parent who just lost one of their kids. Thankfully, I've never had to experience anything remotely approaching that. But that your child would die in yet another 100% preventable mass shooting, and then to have a person come who is better than anyone else the embodiment of a complete lack of interest or will in doing anything about the problem. He is a guy that if he wanted to, could change the law. He could do it right now. He can't change everything unilaterally, but he's willing to do it on any number of different issues involving the environment with his executive orders. And he chooses to do nothing here while then going off and talking favorably about the NRA. I guess I admire the bravery of these parents to even be willing to sit down with him, but I feel like that would only make me feel worse, that this is a guy who seems to delight in working with the industry that perpetuates the culture that produces these shootings.
Yeah, you know, he just unilaterally used laws from World War II era and on to impose tariffs and to support coal power plants, and he said it was a matter of national security. Tens of thousands of people dying every year is a matter of national security. We have about 10 9/11s every single year from gun violence in America. And that's national security, not because, hey, you have donors that are from the coal industry. Yeah. That is not national security. But I want to give you a couple of other perspectives here. Pamela Stanich was also with the president, and I get that it depends probably to some degree at least on your perspective going into the meeting and your political perspective. She was a supporter of the president, so she came away impressed by him and said that he showed sincerity, compassion, and concern. But then this quote, she certainly didn't mean it this way, but was heartbreaking to me. She said, changes are coming for the good. Thank you, Mr. Trump. There are no changes coming for the good. He is not going to protect you in any way, shape, or form.
Maybe he'll pray harder this time.
Yeah, and
this is not national security. This is male insecurity. You know, we talk about serial killers, and we can clearly see how that's motivated by sexual violence. And we have to also look at these school shootings. I mean, one of the things that always seems to happen is violence directed at the female students, and then it pushes it further. And the truth of the matter is, like, we have a sickness, and our men are running towards guns as some way to assert their rage and needing to push themselves up in terms of power. And I think we have to talk about that part of it. I think we have to talk about how this is a male problem, and mostly a white male problem. So when we're talking about gun control, we also have to talk about these issues what is leading our men down this crazy path What is this misogyny that's taking root? What is this racism that's taking root? It is so deeply upsetting, but we're never going to get to the problem unless we actually start talking about the root of it, which is, I think, deeply psychological. Yes, mental illness, but it's not it's a pervasive type of mental illness in America to think that you need a weapon, a rifle, an AR-15 to become a real man. I think that's crazy.
I want to give you two last perspectives here. This is not the only time that he's come across as uncaring in a similar situation. You also had actually several different instances. There's the soldier who died in Africa, and he was terribly rude to his wife, and that became a huge issue. But also Samantha Fuentes was shot in Parkland in that shooting. She survived, but she's got shrapnel behind her, lodged behind her right eye. And Trump came to comfort her. She said, "I've never been so unimpressed by a person in my life, and he didn't make me feel better in the slightest." Now, the last perspective is Donald Trump. So we'll end on an otherwise tragic and very sad story in a humorous way, because as a candidate, Donald Trump said we're all wrong about what some are calling his empathy gap. He said empathy would be, quote, one of the strongest things about Trump. Who says that? Who talks like that? And is that what a person who's empathetic towards others would say? No. Like, you know what's really good about me? How much I could empathize with you is one of the strongest things about Uyghur. Like, if anyone else said that, you'd say lock him up. This guy's crazy. I mean, you want to talk about mental health problems. Who says I'm really strong on empathy, let alone using the third person?
Strong empathy.
Can I get the last word?
Yes.
It's time to ban gun ownership.
There you go, that's right. I love the strength. There you go. Time to fight back. All right, I promised Samantha Bee. Can we? I know we're out of time.
I mean, we're already over. If we do that, we're going to be 10 minutes over.
Okay,
15 minutes
guys,
over.
let's discipline here. Let's do this in 3 minutes.
Okay.
Go.
Okay, let's do that. Okay, then I'm going to speak really fast then. Okay. Earlier this week, Roseanne Barr lost her show after a series of racist and conspiratorial tweets. Now, to restore cosmic balance, obviously someone on the left needs to be destroyed. Thankfully, Samantha Bee used a dirty word on her show, so I think it's going to be her. She had this to say during a segment on the border. She said about Ivanka posting a photo of her with her child on like the same day that we found out that children were being separated from their parents at the border. Samantha Bee said, Ivanka, that's a beautiful photo of you and your child, but let me just say, one mother to another, do something about your dad's immigration practices, you feckless C-word. He listens to you, put on something tight and low cut and tell your father to effing stop it. Tell him it was an Obama thing and see how it goes, okay? Which, my favorite thing about that is that what people are getting worked up about is not the fact that she can make a joke subtly, but we totally know what she means about the fact that her father is sexually attracted to her. People are just like, yeah, whatever, obviously he is. Let's focus on the C word, which people are, and they're pissed at her. So she apologized on Twitter saying, I would like to sincerely apologize to Ivanka Trump and to my viewers for using an expletive on my show to describe her last night. It was inappropriate and inexcusable. I crossed a line and I deeply regret it. She expanded on this during an awards show, saying, we spent the day wrestling with the repercussions of one bad word when we all should have spent the day incensed that as a nation we are wrenching children from their parents and treating people legally seeking asylum as criminals. Every week I strive to show the world as it is, unfiltered. Sometimes I should probably have a filter. I accept that. I take it seriously when I get it wrong, and I do take responsibility when I get it wrong. Apology not accepted from the Trump clan, though, and Donald Trump has been tweeting about how she needs to be fired.
So let's just be clear on a number of things. Ted Nugent used the same exact word and was later, about of course Hillary Clinton, and was later invited to the White House by Donald Trump. So apparently he doesn't mind the word.
Roseanne has used it in tweets before.
Scott Baio used it and then was invited to speak at the Republican National Convention. So Trump and the Republican Party obviously do not mind the word. And then Roseanne Barr used the word and was not fired. You see, that's the difference. There's a difference between using a vulgarity against one particular person. If that was the rule, then half of the right wing would be fired immediately for what they've said about me. Okay, and I don't actually want that. No, and smearing an entire group of people, which is what Roseanne Barr did. If you can't understand that difference, it's because you're trying hard not to understand that difference, or you're a little dense. And then finally, when Sarah Huckabee Sanders pretends to be outraged and says, the collective silence by the left and its media allies is appalling, and talks about, quote, her disgusting comments. Can't any reporter raise their hand and go, didn't the president that you represent say that you should grab women by the pussy? So could you please drink this tall glass of shut up juice while you pretend to care about vulgarity? I mean, we're tolerating this obvious lie by Sarah Huckabee Sanders and the Republicans that they care about it, and then they are offended that if you use vulgarity? What a preposterous notion. Donald Trump is the most vulgar president we've ever had by an order of magnitude, certainly in our lifetimes. And he has not only said those things, he's done those things. So the idea that Sarah Huckabee Sanders or any right-winger is outraged by this is nothing but a total lie.
It's false, and my mother's Italian, so she taught me how to curse, from a very young age. But I'll say that she hates that word. Mm-hmm. And that word causes really strong emotions from people, mostly women. But I don't think I've ever heard a woman use that word against another woman, which is sort of, I think, what she's trying to do and get away with here. And you can't equate one white celebrity woman using one word against another white celebrity woman with.
At TYT, we frequently talk about all the ways that big tech companies are taking control of our online lives, constantly monitoring us and storing and selling our data. But that doesn't mean we have to let them. It's possible to stay anonymous online and hide your data from the prying eyes of big tech. And one of the best ways is with ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN hides your IP address, making your activity more difficult to trace and sell to advertisers. ExpressVPN also encrypts 100% of your network data to protect you from eavesdroppers and cyber criminals. And it's also easy to install. A single mouse click protects all your devices. But listen, guys, this is important. ExpressVPN is rated #1 by CNET and Wired magazine. So take back control of your life online and secure your data with a top VPN solution available, ExpressVPN. And if you go to expressvpn.com/TYT, you can get 3 extra months for free with this exclusive link just for TYT fans. That's expressvpn.com/TYT. Check it out today.
So, a white celebrity woman deliberately using a racist epithet against a powerful figure in the government, which is what Roseanne Barr did, right?
Yeah.
And they're not equatable, right?
Yeah.
That's the problem here. Like, they're not equatable. And so now immediately it becomes this sort of one-upspersonship in the media, and that you lose the general outrage about the fact that we have a racist administration who was defending racists, and then you had somebody who was defending that administration using racism. That was the whole issue. Samantha Bee's sort of subtle use of a word that will tick almost everybody off in a different context, I think, has to be seen in that way. I can't say about that one. All I'm just saying is I don't think they're equatable, because I think you have a racist administration being upheld by a person who's then a racist, and then a TV station going, "I think we're done with this." You know what I mean? It's subtle, but
It's a reminder, though, that we can't fight Trump with Trump-like behavior.
Yeah.
We can't lower ourselves to his childishness. So we shouldn't use those kinds of words, because it just becomes a distraction from the core terrible issues that Trump's advancing.
Yeah, and the only thing I'll say to that is I will accept that from progressives like you guys. I will not accept it from the right wing. Just won't. So the minute the Trump administration says she should be fired or her show canceled, I say, yeah, the minute you condemn Ted Nugent, Scott Baio, Roseanne Barr, and Donald Trump, and if you want Samantha Bee to lose her job, deal, as long as Donald Trump steps down and loses his job.
yeah, well, that's a good point. Yeah,
Right.
To be
step
fair,
down.
she'd probably agree to that.
But don't apologize to racists. Don't apologize to authoritarians. Don't let this whole media cycle force you into a box where you are saying, I made a joke and I used a word and I was being provocative with something that is actually causing really deep hatred. I don't think you can make that equation, and that's what's happening in the media right now.
And don't pretend that people are operating with good faith who have literally never in their record done so.
That's right. All right, we got to go, guys. We got a whole great hour for you guys. Like I said, some amazing, powerful stories. Stories of 2 horrible, gigantic stories of injustice. And then I think we actually have hit the bottom of the barrel. A right-wing candidate openly advocating for pedophilia, but it actually gets worse. It gets worse and worse and worse. It's one of the most horrific stories we've ever reported on in 16 years. We're going to do that after we return. But I want to thank Joe Sandberg and Josh Fox and John. Thank you guys. Great panel. Really educational. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
We'll be right back. Thanks for listening to this podcast. You're only halfway through, so hold, stay right here. Just want to remind you, if you want to get all 5 segments of the Young Turks commercial free, these are just 2 of them. Every day we do it. So go to tytnetwork.com/join and you'll get the whole 5 segments, 2 hours, ad free. Do it now. All right, back on the Young Turks. There's so many good tweets and announcements. I'll try to keep it as quick as I can. Nihas Bakage writes in, I love these guest hosts, so thank you guys. Mr. Squirrel says, hey guys, we finally found something that's too terrible for the internet. Yes, we did it, congratulations. Kara Curley says, wow, who would have thought that Roy Moore was the PG-13 version?
Oh, yeah.
Right? Gabby Marita says, I'm 7 weeks pregnant and this Virginia congressional candidate is making me want to construct a moat around my uterus right now. Yeah, it's just for anybody who's got young kids, that guy, it's haunting, let alone for women, let alone for everything. Okay, now let's go to good news. This weekend, Bernie Sanders is in Los Angeles, and he's doing a wonderful event with Sean King and Patrisse Cullors. Sean is, of course, started Real Justice PAC. They're fighting for progressive people in the criminal justice system and prosecutors and DAs, etc. It's a great PAC, and they're going to talk about it. We're going to carry it right here on the Young Turks at 7 o'clock on Saturday, 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific. So just go to facebook.com/theyoungturks to check that out. Facebook.com/theyoungturks. Saturday is 7 o'clock Eastern, and check out Real Justice PAC of Sean King and Bernie Sanders. It's great to do that with him. And then on Tuesday we have the elections. We're going to do enormous coverage of 8 different states, including California, New Jersey, and some other enormous states. A lot of just Democrats, a lot of progressives in those races, including Allison Hartson. She's going to appear on the show, and then she's going to go do the Party with You Guys and other people's fundraiser. So go to AllisonHartson.com/June5 to attend her party/celebration on the night of the election on June 5th. You give $27 now. It allows her to spread her message before the elections, and then you get to go to her headquarters on that night, AllisonHartson.com/June5. So please check that out. Okay, Anna, what's next?
All right. 2 police officers in Florida have been placed on administrative leave following an investigation into a viral video that showed the possibility of police brutality. You will see it and you will judge for yourselves. It is a brutal video, but before we get to it, let me give you the context. The police arrested Daniel James Dunkelberger on Hollandale Beach Boulevard on Wednesday afternoon after he was seen taking a cell phone and a charger cable from a car. So he'd burglarized the car. 2 taser shots failed to subdue him, and he braced his body to keep from being shackled. And so the cops responded in the following brutal and graphic way, just giving you that warning.
No, bro, what the fuck? You got on the ground before you get on the ground. Get on the ground. Man, what the f? You're right. Get on the ground. Now you gotta get on the ground. Now you're not hurt.
Yo, he didn't do anything. Stop hitting him.
Right?
Stop hitting him.
Turn around. You're on now.
Stop hitting him when he's not. He just hit him. Do not hit him.
All I am.
I don't care. I understand that he robbed you, but he doesn't need to hit him after the fact.
I know.
Everyone deserves due process. I understand. I totally understand. But he doesn't deserve to be hit after.
After
He's on the ground.
He's handcuffed now.
He was on the ground and you're hitting him. You want to see the footage? Do you want to see the footage?
Show me the footage. Bro, my head busted open.
All right, so the reason why we came across that video is because someone who had, the person that you hear filming it, posted it on social media, on Twitter to be exact, and he also included the following in the tweet. Police brutality in broad daylight on Hollandale Beach Drive. Police heavily beat this man up, busted his head open, led him to bleed heavily. The man is known around the area to be a mentally challenged individual. So, the press tried to get in touch with him and they haven't been able to. He's alleging that the man had mental health issues. I have not confirmed that. I haven't seen any confirmation of that. But there is concern about excessive force there, especially when he was already on the ground and they were still using batons to hit him.
He's been charged with resisting arrest without violence, which makes me wonder why it took all of that. And then they still had to physically grab him to take him down after the beating. And so my thought is just wondering why it didn't start there. 2 people, 1 person, he wasn't even moving when the video started. I just wondered why all the hits. And the officer had time, the officer standing up had time to argue back and forth. This guy, I'm assuming if he needs that much of a beating, is dangerous and violent and scary. How do you have time to argue with someone standing, not even a part of this, if you're focused on, subduing a dangerous criminal?
So with these cop stories, we often have to argue with people, even though we just saw the video. You just saw it, and so. But look, maybe it is that there is an honest disagreement about people's perspectives. So if somebody stole my cell phone and my charger from my car, I'd be mad. I'd be really mad, right? And I'd want him arrested. Okay. If they said to me, all right, now we're gonna beat him like what you just saw in the video and hit him over the head like that, do you agree? No, I do not agree.
You know who else didn't agree? The person who was burglarized. You can also hear him in that video, saying that he didn't want that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So you hear the remorse in that man's voice. And I think most people understand that while it's a crime, and of course he shouldn't have done that and he should be arrested, there's no reason why cops need to go the extra mile and start using that type of excessive force. Put him in handcuffs, and that's that. Why does it have to get to that point where they tase him and then they take out their batons and they start hitting him with the batons?
Yeah, so I get that it was more difficult to arrest them, and a lot of people have mental health issues, and it is difficult to arrest them sometimes. We've got to train our police better, that when you run into someone who doesn't immediately follow your commands, the correct answer is not to beat him over the head until he's bleeding heavily. And that's unfortunately the go-to move. But the reason I brought up honest disagreement is because I think that there are a lot of Americans that look at that and go, yeah, if somebody took my stuff, I'd want the cops to do that. Wow. I guarantee you there's gonna be a ton of people who watch this video and go, oh, you libs, you don't know anything. And
he shouldn't have been stealing.
And he should have listened to the cops.
Then you don't believe in America. You don't believe in America, at least what America is supposed to be. You believe in living in a police state. You believe that authorities have all the right in the world to beat the hell out of someone by the way, to shoot and kill someone who's unarmed if that person disrespects the officer or poses even a little bit of a challenge in arresting that person. That's, in my opinion, not what we're supposed to support in the United States. That is what you experience in an authoritarian country. And if you want that, then you should go live in an authoritarian country. You shouldn't be in a country like this.
Yeah, and the fact that the police don't work for us, to have the accountability, to the fact we elect people within the police department. I mean, we are actively involved in the process, and our tax dollars go to the police. In the city of Los Angeles alone, most of our taxes go to the police department. So we should be heavily involved in how we want. What world we want to live in. I don't want to live in a police state. And I think the other thing too is I'm so boggled over how we treat people with mental health issues. And the city of Los Angeles, again, just because I know about LA County so much, is the houser of the most mentally ill people in the US. That's got to tell you something, that our resort is to have, our last resort, or our first resort maybe, is to have police use excessive force and to jail mentally ill people or people who have mental health issues. And I'll say something else. Thank you for the cameraman who took that video, bravely uploaded it online. And I understand why he didn't want to reveal his identity, because as we've learned in Ferguson and other places, people who, in Staten Island during Eric Garner's murder, people who did videotape the police misbehaving, they were held to account with higher either sentencing, with more of a heavy punishment, whether it was death in some cases, than the police were. And so, last thing, the police are on leave with pay. One of them is on leave with pay. The other one is retired and went back to the police force. It's a weird story, but it's disgusting.
That's just the way it works. Yeah, they usually get paid when they're on leave as they're being investigated.
And that's the problem with the whole culture. I mean, look at what happened with Chelsea Manning. Chelsea Manning shows, among the different things that she released was the Apache helicopter video where our soldiers mowed down not only innocent journalists, but then first responders who came to bring them to the hospital. So even if they thought, okay, we're not going to punish them for killing the journalist because they thought the camera was a gun or something, they were careless about it, so no big deal, it's a war. We knew that the people coming to help were bringing them to the hospital, and we killed them anyway. Right. But those people never got punished, but Chelsea Manning got punished for revealing it. And so that's why it's not surprising that a lot of times there are no consequences for the people in power, but if you reveal what they are doing wrong, there will be consequences for you. But I agree with Matha that there are acts of courage throughout the country now, and now we're finally getting to see what the ugly side of power looks like.
Those acts of courage are a lot of times the only reason police get held accountable. Like in North Charleston, when the man was running away and got shot in the back. That story before that video came out was widely believed. You know, he had a gun, he was pointing a gun at me, I was fearing for my life, and that officer only got arrested because of that video. And I think both people, the officer got arrested, I think the person who was shooting the video ended up getting arrested on some mysterious drug charges, kind of what you were alluding to.
But it happens all the time. And by the way, that officer was initially acquitted, even though on tape, you see him shooting him in the back. Yeah. Yesterday, we did a video about a guy who was in his own house playing music too loud, apparently, according to a neighbor. And he had been drinking inside his own house. Cops came in, he closed the garage door on him. He has every right to do that. They shoot him through the door, kill him. They put a bullet hole in his head. And yeah, you go watch that video and you look at the comment section, there are a lot of people like, well, you shouldn't have drank so much.
Okay, let's not talk about
in his own house, and of course he's black,
and so. Makes me lose my mind. Okay, I'm gonna do one more story and then we'll take a break. A Georgia couple has lost custody of their 15-year-old son after they made the decision to give their son marijuana to treat his seizures. Apparently, their 15-year-old son, David, was suffering from seizures on a regular basis. They had heard that people were using medicinal marijuana as a way to stop those seizures. And so they were so desperate and so tired of prescription drugs that they decided to try it. And his seizures stopped. But unfortunately, authorities found out about this and there were some significant consequences. Take a look.
Matthew and Susanna Brill say their 15-year-old son David went from having up to 10 seizures a day to being seizure-free for 71 days after he began smoking marijuana.
Have you ever had 71 days where he didn't have a seizure?
Never.
Currently, medical marijuana is legal in 29 states and Washington, D.C. 9 states and D.C. allow for legal recreational marijuana, but Georgia has some of the strictest marijuana laws in the country. Physicians are not allowed to prescribe marijuana for medical use, and it is illegal to sell or possess it. But the law does allow those with the state-issued medical card to possess low THC oil.
That the only way he could get a medical card would be a 6-year waiting list.
So the Brills say, frustrated with traditional prescription medication, they took matters into their own hands.
You're having to buy it illegally.
Yes.
Matthew Brill says he smoked the marijuana first to make sure it was okay before giving it to his stepson.
You guys got arrested.
Yes.
You both go to jail.
For 6 days.
The Brills were charged with reckless conduct after someone alerted the Georgia Division of Family and Children Services. On April 20th, David was removed from the Brills' custody. That day, he had a seizure and had to be rushed to a hospital.
So this is pretty outrageous. I mean, when you consider that recreational marijuana is legalized in so many states at this point, the idea that a couple would lose custody of their children and face criminal charges because they gave it to their child for a legitimate reason is outrageous. But I don't know, maybe I'm being extreme here.
No, this system is extreme. And
yes.
So,
yes.
I mean, the last part of that report, out of all the terrible parts in the story, maybe the most terrible. So they take the kid to a group home 60 miles from his parents. The parents are in jail, and then what happens? He has a seizure. Because he has seizures, let him, in this case, the marijuana is medicine. Let him take the goddamn medicine. But no, we are insane and brutalize our own population. And so our answer for you wanna help your kid is we're gonna throw you in jail, and I don't give a damn about your kid. Let him have seizures because my morality says you shouldn't smoke pot.
This is why you need the federal government to end the prohibition of marijuana. It's nice to have legalization on a state level, but remember, we still have states that are incredibly conservative, unwilling to accept the science behind the medicinal value of marijuana, and people are getting hurt as a result of that.
I mean, I think the responsibility of the department, the Division of Family and Children's Services, should be to protect children and do the least harm to children. And I can't imagine stripping him away from his parents. Yeah. This has affected his health. That seizure was so bad that he had to go to the emergency room. Right. And now he's in a group home 60 miles away from his family. That cannot be the safest option for this kid compared to what they took him out of. It just can't be. It doesn't seem logical.
Right. And to Anna's point about, I mean, it's horrific, and I want to get into that part as well, but to Anna's point about it being prohibited on a federal level, well, our Attorney General is going to make it his tenure to make sure that happens. And this is why in Colorado, still there are banking issues. If you get money from the legal marijuana, recreational marijuana business and commerce. So I think this is a difficult sort of fight that we're going to have on this level. And secondly, I know so many mothers and fathers with children who are autistic who have tons of seizures, and medical marijuana or recreational marijuana was the only way that they could put an end to it. So this is a very familiar story. This is not a one-off. This happens all the time in cases of children with seizures, and it's remarkable the extreme measures that we take in responding to it, being jailing the parents and then ripping the kid from his home and adding more harm.
Yeah. I think they said in here that the reason they didn't just use the THC oil is because it would have taken 6 months to get the license.
6 years.
6 years, right. Yeah, so essentially though, they're arresting the parents and stripping the child away from them, not necessarily because what they were doing was wrong, but just because they didn't wait long enough, because they did it quicker. Like it's almost like, well, this is okay. It just takes 6 years to get it. If you would have waited 6 years,
just
he'd
let him
still be with you, right?
Right. Just let him have seizures 10 times a day for 6 years, and then maybe we'll let you have it. This is what we do to our own citizens, and then we call it freedom. And one last thing, Matthew, the dad here, it's his stepson, and they asked him, okay, did you know you could go to prison? He's like, of course I knew that, and he said, I'm a father that did what it took to make sure my son was okay.
I want to add something, because I've actually witnessed my brother have a seizure. It was one of the most frightening things I've ever seen. So to witness that at least 10 times a day, of course he would have done that. Of course you would have done that.
Right. I bet you Jeff Sessions would have done that as well.
Yes, definitely.
If one of his children was suffering from that and he knew that would be the only option, I'm sure he would do it. But that's the thing with some right-wingers, They are unable to put themselves in other people's shoes. They don't understand things until they experience it for themselves.
Yeah. All right, we got to take a break, guys. When we come back, unfortunately, another story of horrible injustice. We'll be right back. Thanks for watching what I hope was a lovely edition of the Young Turks. Now, you know that is 2 of the 5 segments that we do because that's free. We want to have you support independent media and come watch the whole show that we do every day. That's 5 segments overall, no ads at all. That's at tytnetwork.com/join. Come become a member. Thanks for watching either way. Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.